Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and today we are looking at the mysterious Missy Bevers case. The 2016 murder committed by an individual wearing police SWAT gear roaming around a church of all places. I mean, this is one bizarre crime, still unsolved, unfortunately, despite video evidence of the suspect. Of course, the costume offered quite a bit of disguise, but perhaps not as much as thought. We'll be going into that, as well as a vehicle spotted. So there seems to be quite a bit to go on, and this case has been requested quite a few times by Mindshock listeners. So we are finally going to do a deep dive into the Missy Bevers case and all avenues of investigation in typical Mindshock fashion, with logic and reason at the forefront, not falling for any logical fallacies. As always, if you enjoyed the podcast, want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure you allow your device to have those notifications come through. You could also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube for access to members-only streams and chats. Like and share the podcast. Keep up awareness in all of these unsolved cases, as well as missing persons cases and wrongful convictions that we cover on Mindshock. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. So I'm just going to do a super quick overview first, and then we will dive deep. For those that are not familiar with the Terry Missy Bevers case, Terry Missy Leanne Bevers was killed inside the Creekside Church of Christ in Midlothian, Texas, April 18th, 2016. The case remains unsolved. She was 45 years old at the time of her death. Cause of death, homicide by multiple puncture wounds to the head and the chest. Missy Bevers arrived at the Creekside Church of Christ at 4 a.m. on April 18, 2016, to prepare for the fitness class she was holding that morning. An hour later, several of her students found her dead. It is believed that Bevers was only in the church for moments before she met her killer. This is a write-up from everybodywiki.com. I don't believe she was dead when she was found. I mean, maybe she appeared dead. I think the official report is that she died before with the paramedics when they had arrived. Police have released surveillance video footage from the church showing the killer walking through the church holding a hammer. The hammer was found to be consistent with Missy Bevers' wounds. The suspect is shown breaking windows and going through offices. They are wearing a black helmet, black boots, black gloves, and a black vest with police in white lettering on the front and back. Their walking gait is very distinct. Their feet are turned outwards, and it has been theorized that they could be wearing shoes that are too large for them. Police estimate that the person caught on tape is 5'8", plus or minus an inch. They originally stated that the suspect was male, but they have since stated the suspect may be of either gender. So, right off the gate, we are dealing with a case that is definitely not run-of-the-mill in any way. This is just very bizarre because we do have this individual caught on tape. And I'll be getting more into the nuances of the gate and what the video does and doesn't suggest or prove. But the thing with this heavy-set individual, unless one wants to theorize this is not a heavy-set individual, and part of the disguise is making them look heavy-set, I don't know how likely that is, but if it is a heavy-set individual as it appears, it's difficult to distinguish. It's much harder to tell the difference between a male and female overweight, heavy-set individual by the way they walk versus, let's say, a more average-sized individual. A female would, of course, have more distinct movement than a male, or vice versa based on their body type. Of course, there are exceptions as well, but it is difficult. At first glance, it would seem like this would be a male, but there's just certain points of the video, the way the person was standing, theoretically, some of it, to me, subjectively, looks like it could very well be a female, but we'll be getting into that later. Let's do a more in-depth look here. This is from truecrimeedition.com, March 2nd. Who killed Missy Bevers? What should have been an easy crime to solve is now a cold case. On April 18, 2016, while getting ready to teach a fitness class at a local church, Terry Missy Bevers was murdered by an unknown assailant. 6 years on, her case is still unsolved. Missy was a 45-year-old mother of 3 from Red Oak, Texas. She took fitness very seriously and taught her own classes. She was an active member of the community and had no known enemies. Just after 4 a.m., Missy arrived at Midlothian's Creekside Church of Christ to prepare for her early morning fitness class. She taught a gladiator boot camp and was prepping the room for a famously intensive session. Missy was found by her students at 5 a.m., who quickly called emergency services. She had a head injury and multiple puncture wounds to her chest. She was unresponsive when she was discovered. Missy died shortly after the paramedics had arrived, and investigation into her murder began immediately. Chilling video from the church showed a person carrying a hammer while opening and closing various rooms around the building. At one point, they broke open a door with the hammer. The person's clothing included a helmet, gloves, and shin guards. They also wore a vest emblazoned with police. I would actually say most of the footage and images taken from the footage, it does look like a man definitively, except for this one image here. There's just something, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but there's just something female about the the way that this individual is leaning. Although, of course, if it is some kind of back or leg injury, that could account for that as well. But there's just something feminine about this pose. I don't know what else to make of it, or another way to describe it. Again, these are just my observations. Let's continue here. The footage of the person in riot gear was analyzed, but the gender of the assailant was inconclusive. The killer was between 5'2" and 5'8". Their feet predominantly pointed outward, and they walked with a limp. Glass from broken windows scattered the floor of the building, guiding police on a trail that helped track the person's movements in the riot gear. They also found marks on the church's back door indicating how the perpetrator accessed the building, initially leading police to believe that the incident may have been a robbery that had gone wrong. However, after searching the property, it was evident that nothing was missing from the church, nor from Missy, who was still wearing her wedding ring. The police were concerned there hadn't been a homicide in the area in years, and they weren't used to dealing with a murder investigation. The video footage was released to the public in hope of finding the person featured in the video, and the police told viewers to note the specific gait with which the person walked. Within hours of its release, the police department was inundated with tips from the public, and the FBI and U.S. Marshals stepped in to help field calls. The police subpoenaed Missy's phone and recovered messages detailing flirtatious and intimate conversations on LinkedIn. That's interesting. Is that the platform of choice for that? There were also strange and creepy messages from a man Missy had shown a friend a few days before her death. That would definitely be interesting. See, the thing with controls is, though, the thing about controls is how many women receive creepy and strange messages on an average day. Like, did Missy Bevers never in her whole life... Now, again, this is going back to 2016. Obviously, social media is a thing. Obviously, there's a lot of communication here. But, yeah, perhaps it's a little bit more rare in 2016 than 2020, although I don't know. I mean, this isn't like 2006, 2005 area where it's just starting out. But in the year 2016, How many people, how many women of her age? I guess let's do strict controls here. I would assume women in their 40s probably receive less random messages than women in their 20s or 30s. I mean, I don't know. And probably more than in their 60s or 70s. I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing here. I haven't seen any conclusive studies. I mean, would all be anecdotal, I guess, based on where people live and such, or what websites they go to, or what social media platforms they are active on. Is that coincidental? Because if these are the only creepy and strange messages she's ever received, then that would be suspicious. If she's been receiving these similar types of messages all the time, then that would be more problematic. But let's go to the DallasNews.com, the Dallas Morning News. Slain fitness instructor Missy Bevers received creepy and strange messages days before death, search warrant says. This is by Tom Steele, May 5th, 2016. Terry Missy Bevers, the fitness instructor killed at a Midlothian church last month, received a message that was creepy and strange just days before her death, according to a search warrant. And this article is curious because in a lot of recent information I've found here, it's kind of just summed up that there was nothing in the warrants of phones of family and friends, and there was just nothing there. But this article paints a different picture here. Bevers, 45, was found dead at Creekside Church of Christ on the morning of April 18th. Police said she had multiple puncture wounds to her head and chest. Bevers had shown a friend a LinkedIn message she had received 3 days earlier, less than 3 days earlier. The search warrant affidavit says the message was from a man neither of them knew, and they thought it was creepy and strange. The friend did not remember the name on the account, police said. Police said Bevers had been receiving messages from another person on LinkedIn since January that were flirtatious and familiar in nature, according to the affidavit. Some of the messages, which police also described as intimate, were deleted and then partially recovered by police. Police said in a separate search warrant that text messages between Bevers and her husband, Brandon Bevers, indicated that they were having marital and financial difficulties. The affidavit also said the phone records indicated intimate, personal relationship, or with an S, external to the marriage. Police believe Bevers had been in contact with her killer. The killer may have used a cell phone to record the slang, according to the affidavit. Police have not named a suspect or motive in Bevers' death. They are working to identify a person in SWAT-type tactical gear seen in surveillance video walking through the church and swinging what looks like a hammer. Police said in an affidavit that the footage indicates the person has a distinctive walk caused by an injury to his or her right leg or foot. Husband said that she didn't know her killer. A lot of weird statements here. You would think that they'd be able, even if she didn't know the name, even if the friend didn't know the name of the person who sent her this weird, creepy, strange message, they'd be able to track that down just through the LinkedIn database, through search warrants and all these things. So I guess it has not been stated here whether or not that was followed up on. So we have to assume they know. Going back to the True Crime Edition write-up here. Okay, so there were strange and creepy messages from a man Missy had shown a friend a few days before her death. Police believe that she had been in contact with her killer, and the names of the people on LinkedIn were never released. Missy posted a lot on social media about her upcoming boot camps, and the night before she was killed, she said that come rain or shine, the class would still go ahead. Unfortunately, her advertising made her movements easily trackable. So on Facebook, she posted this on her Facebook account: "No excuses, you are gladiators. If it's raining, we're still training. Tomorrow begins week 1, endurance, and it's weight day. If you've been using the same weight for the last 2 camps, it's time to go up. 5 a.m. Creekside Church of Christ. We now have cover under the front awning. 5 a.m. Creekside Church of Christ, and then 9 a.m. Midlothian Conference Center. We are moving to the Midlothian Civic Center." So she's posting here where she's going to be at 5 a.m. the night before, 7:55 p.m., April 17th. So, okay. I'm gonna do this aside right now because this is something I've been thinking about for quite some time. So early on, some people theorized that this is some kind of psychotic who's just cruising places looking for a victim. But is that too coincidental? Let's go to the Midlothian crime statistics for this. So on neighborhoodscout.com, they pull some stats here. Because if this was in a place like a highly populated area, New York, LA, Dallas even, you could possibly make the case that there's roaming psychotics that may or may not do something like this. This is Midlothian, Texas. This is Midlothian, Texas. So the crime index, it has a 59 on the crime index, safer than 59% of U.S. cities in totality. So that includes both violent and property cases. So the crime rate per 1,000 residents is 0.91. Violent crime rate per 1,000 residents. So Texas averages a 4.5. Midlothian averages a 0.91. So your chances of becoming a victim of a violent crime in Midlothian is 1 in 1,098, but in Texas averages a 1 in 222. And for property crime per 1,000 residents, Midlothian's an 8.77. Texas averages a 22.62. The national median is 19. And the national median for violent crime per 1,000 residents is 4, and Midlothian's a 0.91, Texas a 4.5. So the chances of becoming a victim of a property crime in Midlothian is 1 in 114, in the rest of Texas, 1 in 44. I'm assuming they're counting basically absolutely everything as a property crime, which of course there's various degrees of property crime as well. On city-data.com, we look at the amount of murders in Midlothian. So they do not get a lot of murders or violent crime in general. So in 2006, 0 murders. 2007, 1 murder. 2008, 0. 2009, 1. 2010, 0. 2011, 0. 2012, 0. 2013, 0. 2014, 0. 2015, 0. 2016, 1. Missy Bevers. 2017, 0. 2018, 0. So murder is definitely not common in Midlothian, Texas. So here's the thing. Obviously, FBI statistics would suggest that Missy Bevers was either killed by a significant other, some kind of a romantic interest, or a friend or coworker or acquaintance or someone known to her. So what are the chances this is a random crime in Midlothian, Texas? See, if this was somewhere else, if this was in a major city, you would still, when she's posting exactly which church at exactly what time the night before, and just the nature of the crime, it still would be unlikely, but it would be more of a theoretical possibility. Now, I'm not going to write off that possibility. This is Mindshock. The only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure, and this case is as of yet unsolved. But how many murder victims make a post the night before they're murdered on exactly where they're going to be at what time? And if this is some small town where the average murder rate is 0 for many years, I mean, it's kind of too coincidental. Now, is it possible someone saw her post who didn't know her specifically? So if it was, let's say, an acquaintance of an acquaintance looking to kill somebody, they picked this random day, they did see her post, even though they didn't personally know her. Is that possible? That's possible, I suppose, but either way, it is not someone just driving around at 4 o'clock in the morning looking for a random place to break into while wearing police SWAT gear. So yeah, we do have to start with the people known to her. Now, if there's all these messages of extramarital affairs going on, there could be some jealousy at play. There could also be other motives, and we'll be taking a look at those as well. But continuing the post here on truecrimeedition.com. After his alibi was verified, Brandon Bevers was questioned by investigators wanting to know who would harm his wife. He told investigators he couldn't think of anyone who would like to hurt Missy. Judging by the fact that Missy's licensed gun was left in her car in the church car park, Missy didn't think there was anyone who wanted to harm her either. And what a shame that is. What a shame. Brandon told the police that his marriage to Missy was great and that they were happy. Still, investigators found out that the marriage was in disrepair and fraught with financial issues and infidelity. On April 22nd, Brandon's father, Randy, went to a dry cleaner's in town with a woman's blood-stained shirt, asking for it to be cleaned. He told the employee that the blood was from breaking up a dogfight, but Missy's murder story had been all over the news, so the employee called the police. A warrant was issued for the shirt, and when analyzed, it looked like someone had already tried to clean the blood off the shirt beforehand. Police also noticed that Randy had a similar physique to the person in the security footage from the church, and he walked with a limp. However, Randy was in California when Missy was murdered, and his alibi cleared him as a suspect. Brandon's sister, Christy, corroborated her father's story that the dogfight happened and that the report eventually came back as positive for canine blood, but the damage was done by then. The community chastised Randy, and despite all of the statements being made public, he was, in their eyes, guilty. A few weeks later, police found security footage from a nearby sporting goods store and discovered a Nissan Altima driving around a nearby car park a few hours before the murder. This video was also released to the public, but the car owner never came forward and no one knew who the car belonged to. And Nissan Altimas are quite popular as well, so that's kind of unfortunate that the make and model of the vehicle was not something a little bit more rare that could be easily tracked, and supposedly that's probably why they used it, if this is directly connected here. There was another vehicle that the police didn't enlist the help of the public in finding. It was a dark SUV seen leaving the church car park on the same morning around 4:30 a.m. Some months later, in the fall of 2019, the police realized that a tip had been phoned in multiple times during the investigation. The new lead was regarding former Lancaster police officer Bobby Wayne Henry. He was also a tactical officer who admitted to police that he still owned his riot gear, but it didn't fit him anymore. Henry was a licensed security guard who worked Missy's funeral and attended Mass at Creekside Church of Christ. Henry was suspended from the police due to an aggravated sexual assault in 1996. He owned a similar car to the second vehicle police were looking for information on, and he also walked with a limp. Police sought the advice of a forensics podiatrist to compare the walk of Henry and the masked assailant in the video footage, but the findings were inconclusive. However, the main issue with Henry being a suspect in Missy's murder was that he was 6'1", far too large to be the person in the security footage. However, the second search warrant issued by the police turned up multiple devices that contained child pornography. In June 2017, Henry was arrested for the pornography charges and took part in an interview from jail with Dallas's WFAA News. He denied knowing Missy or even her name, and eventually his alibi for the night of Missy's murder was corroborated. He was released without charge after 70 days in jail. To date, he hasn't been charged for the pornography in his possession. He was also ruled out as a person of interest in Missy's homicide. That's weird. Despite help from the FBI and seemingly strong suspects, the case reached a dead end. Unease quickly rippled through the city of Midlothian, with Missy's killer still free to wander the streets. Internet sleuths began to comb the internet for clues to try to find Missy's murderer, but some of them went too far in their search. Most recently, Missy's daughter Hannah spoke to Inside Edition and recalled the struggles she and her family have been through since her mother's death. I've had people on Facebook message me and say, "Your dad did this. Your dad killed your mom." My dad loved my mom, and I know that 100%. Missy's killer was between 5'2" and 5'8". Their feet predominantly point outward, and they walked with a limp. This person could be a man or woman. Police are still looking for the owner of the Nissan Altima. So, okay. A couple of things. Let's look at the stepfather here because there are some issues with this guy. The other thing, too, actually, while we're looking through this footage here, I mean, what is this guy doing? Is he trying to stage this as some kind of robbery, but then he doesn't even take anything? So, I mean, it's kind of weird. If you're staging it as a robbery, wouldn't you actually stage it as a robbery? Or is this just a certified loon? I mean, it's kind of weird. And if he knew he did, the other question is, did this individual know whether or not there was CCTV footage here? And so are there two vehicles in question then? The Altima and a dark SUV that the police actually did not make public or ask the public for help finding? Does that mean there was more than one individual involved here? Because why are there two vehicles? Supposedly neither has been cleared? I mean, this is kind of weird. So let's look at his gait here. Randy Bevers here. Similar gait, no question. No question, similar gait. Feet point outward slightly, yes. See, the thing is, a lot of people walk like this. That's the problem with doing these types of analyses. You might not necessarily be able to rule them out. Does that rule them in? Also, some people believe this is Duper's delight here on why he's just so smiley in regards to all of these charges, and even the blood on the shirts at the dry cleaner. So here's the thing regarding that. There's no way he'd be dumb enough to send that to a dry cleaner. He would get rid of it. So even if he's guilty, I mean, this doesn't mean he's innocent. Just because, I mean, people have dogs get into fights, blood gets on clothes. I mean, none of this is strange, especially not in Texas. So that doesn't mean he's innocent just because the blood on the clothes that he happened to turn in belonged to dogs. That doesn't mean he's innocent in any way. Doesn't mean he's guilty either, because, I mean, how dumb would one have to be to take clothes to a dry cleaner from a murder victim? I mean, that's kind of weird. So this was kind of like a whole bunch of nothing, but he seemed happy, again, according to this interview here, we'll listen to a clip from it, that the police were investigating these things.
The dry cleaner had your shirt listed as a woman's double XL shirt. Just a mistake. That's your shirt. The dry cleaner listed your shirt with the bloodstains on it as a women's.
Well, my wife's white shirt had bloodstains on it too. So both of us had bloodstains on her shirt and mine. So because it,
So there are two shirts of blood on it.
Yeah.
The one only listed one.
The one only listed one. Where's the other shirt?
The dry cleaners.
So the dry cleaner calls and says there's blood on.
I don't know what I don't know the conversation between the cleaners and the police station. Okay, I don't know that conversation.
So you're saying there's blood on two shirts.
There's two shirts that's got blood on. Okay.
And then, Randy, even though it's brought you this attention, would you say that you're glad that they're looking so closely?
You better
at all
believe
of
it.
this?
You better believe it. You better believe it. If they weren't, they wouldn't be doing their job. Okay, so by them doing this, it tells me that they're being diligent and doing their job on any tiny little whatever comes across is being looked at, and it should be. So that's great.
So what does everybody think about that clip? I mean, is this Duper's delight here? It's just kind of weird. I mean, it's kind of weird. I don't know what to make of it. Supposedly, his alibi did clear. So what does that mean? I mean, I still keep thinking about the two vehicles, though. I don't know if there's a big enough deal made about the two vehicles. There's two unidentified vehicles. If we're dealing with two individuals, I mean, is it beyond the realm of possibility that a roving psychotic in SWAT gear just happened to be going to that church and someone else was there to kill Missy, and the person that killed Missy is not the person in this outfit? Or they are both working together, which would seem to be more likely if there were two individuals involved in this church in the middle of nowhere in Midlothian, Texas, which averages 0 murders per year. So, I don't know. What does everybody make of that? Let's go over a couple more articles to see the current state of the investigation. This is also Dallas Morning News. After 5 years, Midlothian police remain determined to find Missy Bevers' killer. Their investigation into the slaying remains open, and the department receives new tips almost daily. So actually, so here's the timestamp. I don't know if this is accurate here, because again, as I've mentioned before, closer to the early 2000s, like for example, the Maura Murray case, some of these other cases, CCTV technicians have stated that the timestamps are usually wrong. I mean, even on bank ATMs, even on government surveillance systems. I mean, even the Pentagon had the wrong date on the 9/11 release of the Pentagon footage. So to hallucinate that timestamps are infallible is weird. Now, I don't know what those stats mean by 2016. By 2016, did that improve from around a 50-50 ratio of accurate to non-accurate? I would think so, right? So again, I'm not a technician. It would be interesting to know at what year did timestamps become more accurate in CCTV footage. I mean, obviously they're not 100% accurate even today. I mean, there's a bunch of inaccurate timestamps everywhere, but it's probably a lot better than 50-50. So if we take this timestamp as accurate, this guy's wandering out around the church. It's already 3:58 a.m. So if Missy Bevers posted on her Facebook the class starts at 5 a.m., this might be the most problematic aspect of the entire case here. Because if she posted a 5 a.m. start time, I mean, what is the average amount a fitness trainer or anybody gets to work early? A half an hour, maybe? Would this random guy or someone who's looking to kill her who knew her, regardless, would they be, if someone's looking specifically for her to kill, how much earlier are you going to get to the church, especially the off chance that someone else is there? I mean, I don't know the normal hours of the church. I don't know how many activities are there normally. But I mean, people driving by, whoever, how much earlier would a killer, especially dressed in SWAT gear if they're not police, how much earlier would they want to get there to stage some kind of robbery gone wrong or something? Would they get there at 3-something a.m. over an hour earlier than when she's supposed to be there? That's a problem. That's a problem. Because if they know she's going to be there at 5 and they know other people are going to be there for the class at 5, they'd be looking to get there, I get, maybe at 4. How much earlier than 4, though? Would they be looking to get there an hour and a half earlier? Why would she be there for just a fitness? I mean, how long does it take to set up a fitness class at a church? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming it would take longer than 10 minutes, but I don't think it would take hours. So I don't know. This is weird. This is weird. I haven't really heard anybody try to tackle the timeline here. Why would they be there that early? And if they're making noise, breaking all these windows, that she didn't hear that? I mean, how exactly did this all go down? I mean, see, we're missing a lot of details here. And is there other footage that has not been released? So CBSNews.com has a write-up here from April 22nd, 2016, which states that an unknown person meanders door to door moments before Missy Bevers arrived. So this report here states that the suspect broke into the church at 3:50 a.m. So over an hour earlier. Bevers entered the building at 4:20 a.m., so she came 40 minutes earlier. So the suspect was there over a half an hour before she got there, 40 minutes before the advertised time of the class. So a participant in Camp Gladiator, that's Bevers' program, arrived at the church at 4:35 a.m. It is not clear how soon after that arrival Bevers was found, but 2 911 calls were received by the police at 5 a.m. Wait a second. So it took Whoa. It took 25 minutes to call the police? I don't know if this timeline has been adequately explained here, because this isn't quite making sense to me. It took the person 25 minutes to find Bevers, and they did not see the suspect leave. So if the suspect left immediately after killing her at between 4:20, I mean, if she entered the building at 4:20 and the first person got there at 4:35, that's a small window. Because all these articles state that she was discovered at 5 a.m., so someone else was there for 25 minutes before discovering her. So Yahoo.com also has a write-up here with a timeline by Jason Sickles, April 22nd, 2016. 3:50 a.m., suspect first appears on video surveillance. So the suspect could have been there earlier, especially if they're breaking in through the back. Who knows how long they were scoping out the building from the back. 4:16 a.m., Miss Bevers' pickup truck is on video surveillance driving into the lot. 4:20 a.m., she walks into the building. 4:35 a.m., participant in Camp Gladiator arrives at location. 5 a.m., first of two 911 calls received from location. 5:03 a.m., initial patrol officers dispatched along with EMS. 5:10 a.m., officers arrive at the location. Huh. Yeah, I'm curious about who this other person was here and at what time the attack took place and her body not being discovered until 5. So also this vehicle was recorded by several different cameras near a gun store 2 hours before the murder, near the church. The Nissan Altima spends 6 minutes in the SWFA outdoors parking lot, much of that time with its lights off. The church is on the opposite side of the divided highway, less than a half a mile away. Curious. That's curious as well. There's some interesting posts on the Web Sleuths forum about this. Now, I'm going to do the lead into these posts here just for some background, because some people are debating whether this is targeted or random, whether these are church robbers, because this happens into Sunday morning when there would be money at the church from Sunday service, and there'd be hours to kill, pardon that phrasing. And this is describing the video, Moshimo said this, walking down the hall, dragging their hand absent-mindedly along the wall. There is nothing about their demeanor that says, I am going to kill someone in a few minutes. Also, proponents of premeditation often say something to the effect of, the killer knew exactly when she would be there. She wasn't coming, they were coming. A class worth of fitness enthusiasts coming to a parking lot with one exit. It had been raining and they were moving the class inside. Plenty of reason for someone to show up early to help get the gear inside. I spent all night going over Missy's Facebook photo posts several times. As I read, Missy commonly brought one or more of her daughters with her to her workouts, even the 5 a.m. workout. Nobody got there exactly on time. Missy arrived and entered the building at 4:20, 40 minutes earlier than 5 a.m. The first class participant arrived at 4:35, 25 minutes early. Now, did they arrive and just hang in the parking lot or something? But in any case, they would have still seen the other person, the other car. I mean, I don't know. It's weird. Not to mention, who plans to murder a fitness instructor in hand-to-hand combat, even armed with a hammer and tools? That is just a stupid plan. Responses here, that's an excellent point. Missy Bevers had a Facebook post in which she said that some campers were known to come in 30 minutes early. If I'm this super intelligent killer looking to do a hit on her, and I've done all this research, and she pulls in at 4:20, giving me potentially a 10-minute window, no way I'm going through with the plan. Well, what about a non-intelligent person who didn't do any real research and who was just given one tip that she's got a class there at 5 a.m.? I mean, not all killers are super intelligent killers who do a lot of research. But another post here by Moshimo, playing my own devil's advocate. Here is a possible exception to the killer not knowing exactly when Missy would be there. I researched the workout group Missy was affiliated with. They, at least now, have a phone app that appeared to feature check-ins. I've never heard it mentioned before, but if her class was using something like that, surely law enforcement would have found out. Missy's photo also revealed that she used or started one or more workout scheduling related pages that are unfortunately no longer available, not even on the Wayback Machine. I wanted to say I found one other fitness related phone app that had a check-in feature, but the app looked like it was one of several things Missy tried out and moved on from quickly. Man, this guy's doing a lot of research if he's going back through all these posts to see exactly which apps she was using. Her photos go back 2 or 3 years, so obviously some finds are more relevant than others. So I consider the killer knowing her arrival time via instant check-in app to be a weak possibility, but I found it, so there it is. I think the only way you would be signed up for alerts would be through Missy, which limits access to class participants. Although, I don't know, see, some apps have security features like that, some don't, where anybody with a certain link, so if somebody that was a member sent them a link, or they found out some other way, I mean, I don't know. Another post here, I'm thinking about motive for the suspect wandering around in the church in police gear in a location with visible surveillance cameras. Suspect had to assume the tapes would be watched by law enforcement and the church leaders immediately after. If suspect just bored and curious and having his way with the church, just some sort of sociopath that does this, breaks into places and wanders around, loves the thrill maybe. Does the suspect have a motive related to the church, like wanting to scare them or make them lose trust in law enforcement? Does suspect have a motive related to law enforcement? Is he trying to lay shade to law enforcement? Frame them for stuff? Is suspect just wandering around looking for something interesting to steal? Of all the motives to put suspects in the scenes we have seen on the surveillance videos, planning to beat a woman to death with a hammer in about 15 minutes seems so far-fetched. Unless that's exactly what he wanted, or the individual wanted everybody to think. We may never know the suspect's intention when he finally encountered Bevers. Does the information we have today give us any indication as to whether Bevers succumbed to her injuries immediately, or was her condition that she got medical attention right away, not 35 minutes later, she would have survived? I mean, that's a good question, too, because she wasn't instantly killed by the assault. Supposedly, she died after EMT had arrived, minutes after 5 a.m., which, dozens of minutes after the initial attack. Another interesting post here, I think Bevers was targeted, and I think the killer needed to perform the kill away from her house where her children were. So to me, the church was just a convenient location. The timing couldn't have been better with the hubby out of town. He was supposedly on a fishing trip in Mississippi that was corroborated. Dark outside, rainy night, a killer's trifecta, so to speak. As to the nonchalant nature of the killer, he has done evil deeds before. The SWAT outfit is a perfect ruse for a quick getaway without witnesses suspecting a thing if witnesses should come about. Yep, of course police are on the scene, perfect blending in and getting away. Although, of course, if Missy usually took one or more of her kids to her classes, that would be strange. But if there were two people involved, if someone hired this individual that's dressed in a SWAT outfit, and they are also there, because if there's two vehicles we're looking for, if the person in the other vehicle was there to make sure that Missy came in alone without any of her daughters, and then gave the go-ahead, is that a possibility? Another interesting post by Moshimo here. I also agree that the suspect's demeanor doesn't scream experienced burglar. Watching how unwieldy they are with their tools while failing to enter that one door, they strike me as someone that has little to no experience with them. That excessive disguise also speaks of inexperience. Like maybe they thought they could fool their way out of a bad spot in a last resort. When I watch other CCTV videos, a hood and gloves seems to provide the same effect and is far less conspicuous should you have to interact with someone before or afterwards. So that leaves someone with a vendetta against the church, someone familiar enough to warrant such a total disguise, yet unfamiliar enough to not realize that Missy and her group were coming in at the same time. Of course, for us, that is unsleuthable. Well, or it could be a somewhat incompetent hitman, or possibly a competent hitman with the accomplice in the parking lot to give definitive time orders. So another interesting post here by Raz, more recently, 2018, not that recent, but in my opinion, knowing where she was killed is huge. The fact that the murder was off camera indicates knowledge of the church and its working cameras. Suspect, in my opinion, knew where to ambush her without being recorded. Not only that, but the suspect needed to find the best place to surprise her, thus getting the upper hand. How was the suspect able to escape without being seen on camera? Could all of the above have been luck? Maybe some, but not all. Suspect knew too much about the church, the cameras, and where best to murder and ambush Bevers. In my opinion, this indicates that it was someone familiar with her routine on rainy days, someone who knew where his presence would be recorded and where it would not be. That, in my opinion, should narrow the list of suspects considerably. Another post here is quite curious. Supposedly, the perp simply covered the camera before Missy arrived. Wow. Interesting. Other people are speculating maybe the murder was caught on camera, and that's why we only got to see certain parts of the video. But without all of this being definitively clarified, I mean, that's curious because, yeah, there's too much we don't know. Is it possible the suspect didn't know about the cameras, was meandering, and then when he noticed it, or he or she noticed the cameras, they covered the cameras, and there was no ambush of Missy in an area where there were no cameras? The cameras were simply taken out of the equation. I mean, this is all unknown. It would be nice to have all of this clarified. Someone actually made a video here just driving around the church in a circle in the parking lot. So what are the possibilities? I mean, there do appear to be several different entry and exit points. That's curious. So if we're dealing with two vehicles here, what are the chances that one of them got away, both of them got away without the person who arrived early seeing them? I don't know. That's curious. Another really interesting post on the timeline here by Pat the Rat on Web Sleuth's January 17th, 2017. I've been going back and re-examining the timeline. Timeline states suspect in police gear was captured on surveillance at 3:50 a.m. Missy enters church at 4:20 a.m. Participant in her class arrives in parking lot at 4:35 a.m. 911 calls are made at 5 a.m. Okay, so supposedly they did workouts in the parking lot and her truck was there with the door open and the truck bed open and she just wasn't there. So did the first arrival just wait there next to her? So all of this, did the murder happen while the other person was waiting in the parking lot? That's weird. But carrying on with this post here, paperwork from the police department states that Missy was setting up her room for the boot camp for about 30 minutes. At which time she then heads towards where the suspect is waiting. Neither is seen on tape again. If this is accurate, that would mean she entered the building at 4:20, but did not head towards the suspect until 4:50. This gives the murderer only 10 minutes to murder her and escape before her body is found at 5 a.m. It also means that at least one of the boot camp participants is in the parking lot at the time of the murder. They arrived at 4:35 a.m. Granted, they may have been listening to music and unable to hear any screams within, but they would have seen a person dressed in police gear leaving the door to the church. That means the murderer left through another entryway, which would have added to what they had to accomplish in that short 10-minute window. Police arrive at 5:10 a.m., at which time, presumably, the murderer would have been unable to leave the parking lot by vehicle. Why is it that after Missy is murdered, the suspect is not seen again? Did they leave through a window? No surveillance cameras in that portion of the church, ? Reports have indicated her body was located in the southwest corner of the church, so with her body being discovered at approximately 5 a.m., people would have been inside the church heading towards her body for at least a couple of minutes before it was found. That cuts an already closed 10-minute window even closer. So if the reports and police documents are accurate, imagine this from the murderer's point of view. You've been in the church since 3:50 a.m., waiting on Missy to show up, assuming this is a targeted hit. Well, here's the thing, though. If it's not a targeted hit, and this guy or girl is walking around the church making noise and breaking windows, they're not afraid that Missy's going to hear them? Did they stop making all that noise once Missy arrived and then just lie hiding in wait, which of course is this timeline? But if this isn't a targeted hit, I mean, is it possible that this person caught on camera has nothing to do with her murder and they just got there, beat up the church basically, and then left? And they were gone for a whole half hour before she was murdered? I mean, what does this timeline really prove here? So anyway, continuing this post here, you've been in the church since 3:50 a.m. waiting on Missy to show up, assuming this is a targeted hit. You surely hear activity within the church when Missy enters at 4:20 a.m. Missy likely is going back and forth to her vehicle several times in order to bring the equipment inside. Although it is likely this ended by 5:35 since the person in the parking lot did not enter with her or help bring any equipment in or help set up the room, which would be the most likely scenario. Very strange that they did not go to her, but rather remained where they were and waiting for her. So from 4:35 a.m., they simply lie in wait for her to come to them until she finally does so at 4:50 a.m. Imagine them looking repeatedly at their watch, knowing the class starts at 5 a.m., and knowing that anyone else could enter the church at any moment. They know they have to kill her with a hammer, no less, and get away before anyone can stop them, and at 4:50 a.m., they now only have 10 minutes before class is scheduled to start. You know Missy is physically fit, and there's the possibility it will take at least several minutes to subdue her, unless she is attacked first from behind and knocked out. However, the autopsy report states she died from puncture wounds to head and chest, not head and back, suggesting a frontal assault. You've been waiting 30 minutes since you heard her enter, and she's still not coming to where you are. So do you go to her, which for some reason they did not want to? Was there surveillance cameras in that room and they feared their face might be exposed in the encounter with Missy? Or keep waiting, even if that means you miss out on the opportunity? Is it possible they made noise to lure her to their area or call out to her? Or were they so confident of her schedule they know she'd go to the corner of the church before she started class, either to use the bathroom, pick up class roster, or something else? If they waited until 4:50 a.m. to murder her, they had nerves of steel. That would seem to indicate this was not their first rodeo. Unless they didn't know about the class at 5 a.m., I guess, because then they might think they had a lot more time. I don't know. I mean, this is all very bizarre. This is all very, very bizarre. Is it possible that they took off their helmet and had a full conversation with her for 20 minutes? And then killed her? Again, we don't really know anything about anything right now. This is all just conjecture and trying to make sense of this timeline, which it's more and more mysterious the more you look at it. So these are quotes here from the MPD presser, April 18th, 2016. Captain John Spann. Like Chief said, we have some video surveillance. The video in the church works on motion sensor, so we can't say for sure when he got into the building, but the first time he appears on camera is about 10 minutes before 4 a.m. But that's not to say that he wasn't in the building prior to that, because he may not have been anywhere where they captured video. Female reporter asks, do you know if this happened very quickly, if she arrived? And Captain John Spann responds, pretty quick after she got there. Again, the timeline from the boot camp members that were arriving there, again, we know the time she entered the church, which I believe is going to be around 4:18 a.m., again, approximate time. We see her in the video. She's walking down the main hallway in the vicinity of where we locate her. But when she gets out of range of the camera, it doesn't pick up motion, and the camera turns off, so we don't have anything. Like I said, we have no video of the assault actually taking place. And on April 22nd, there's another press conference. Assistant Chief Johnson stated the suspect arrived at the church first, forced entry into the location. Missy arrived a few minutes later. Excuse me, the first surveillance captured the suspect on video was about 10 minutes before 4 a.m. Miss Bevers arrived at about 4:16 a.m. in the parking lot, entered the church immediately. A few minutes later, she was inside the church, not realizing the intruder was already inside. And shortly thereafter, she was murdered inside of the church. We're not going to discuss the details of how Miss Bevers was murdered. Our communication center received some calls at around 5 a.m. reporting the incident. So he's stating she was murdered shortly thereafter. I mean, what does that mean? 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes? It's kind of weird. Alright, so let's go to Reddit. Unresolved Mysteries, one of the best subreddits for cold cases and unsolved cases. This was posted 5 years ago by the Nerd Father. I believe he had some great posts on the Springfield 3 case as well. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you check that out on Mindshock, the Springfield 3 mystery series. Who killed Missy Bevers? On April 18, 2016, 45-year-old fitness instructor Terry Bevers, who often went by the name Missy, was brutally murdered inside Creekside Church located in Midlothian, Texas in the early hours of the morning. At the time, she was getting preparations ready for a fitness class, Camp Gladiator, before her students were to arrive at 5 in the morning. Once class was soon to begin, that's when Missy's students discovered her lifeless body. Her death was caused by puncture wounds to the head and chest. As the investigation went underway, the police discovered surveillance footage inside the church with the suspects dressed in tactical gear, SWAT. This person was dressed to the nine, from the vest, pants, boots, and even a helmet, along with a hammer that was used for Missy's murder. This is where things became peculiar. Whoever this POI is, they had a very unorthodox and unnatural posture and stance, especially when walking aimlessly. Whether this was intentional or not, it cannot be confirmed. Nevertheless, the footage did allow the police to build a timeline of events. Surveillance shows the suspect inside walking around casually and opening the many doors. Not only that, this incident took place at approximately 4:15 a.m. in the morning, just 45 minutes before Missy's class was to start. Although presumed to be male, officials are still unsure of the gender of this individual. Subsequently, investigators started to look at Missy's personal life. Due to search warrants, the police were able to find possible motives. Missy was a mother of 3 kids and having a lot of troubles financially with her marriage, specifically on her part with unfaithfulness. Texts and other forms of messages found her being flirtatious with another male. With that being uncovered, police finally had their biggest break in the case, yet unfortunately that avenue did not provide any substantial clues that would help determine Missy's killer. Missy's husband Brandon told police he strongly believes the murderer is a female and knew her on some form of a personal basis. Oh, that's weird. Furthermore, he suggests that this unidentified person attempted to make this tragedy look like a burglary gone wrong, mainly due to surveillance showing this individual opening doors and breaking glass windows. And we'll be coming back to Brandon's behavior and statements. Is this something he would say if he knew, if he was responsible, just to throw people off track, or possibly even his own father? And we'll be going into the different scenarios on whether, if his father, Randy, is the murderer, does Brandon know? And how would that scenario play out in the situation where he does know and in a situation where he doesn't know? And then, of course, if Randy is not the killer and Brandon knows he's not the killer, then how would his behavior exhibit in that situation? We have to look at all the different possible scenarios. The strangeness of this case didn't stop there, however. A few days after the murder had happened, Missy's father-in-law, Randy Bevers, went to the dry cleaners bringing in a women's double extra long sleeve shirt covered in blood. He told employees that it was merely from a Chihuahua dog that was recently injured and taken to a vet. Out of suspicion, employees contacted the police and the shirt was subjected to DNA testing for evidence. Nevertheless, the vet was able to confirm this incident. Although the shirt became ruled out, investigators still had their eye on Randy. More interestingly enough, Randy, the father-in-law, is roughly the same height and weight of the stranger captured on surveillance. While this crime was making its coverage on various television news channels, the family of Missy was brought into the public eye. During a particular broadcast, the father-in-law was interviewed. As such, Many people noticed that his demeanor was slightly different in terms of emotion. Not only that, the way Randy walked was practically identical to the POI in the surveillance footage. 8 months have passed, and despite all the information, the case is still unsolved as of today, December 28th, 2016. And no updates have been made that's been released to the public. Missy's murderer is still free. I think the case deserves a lot more attention than it's receiving. Whether the killer is male or female, I cannot say for certain. That being said, in my eyes, this case should be solvable. I can't fathom the notion of this simply being an act of sheer randomness. To me, it was methodical, deliberate, and personal, with the killer knowing Missy on a level of friendship or simply acquaintances in one way or another. This unidentified person had an idea of Missy's schedule and planned their attack accordingly. I'm hoping this case will be solved soon. And supposedly, the father-in-law, Randy, was in California when the murder took place. So does that mean it couldn't have been him? Or was it really the father and son who were in cahoots to some extent to take Missy out, in which case they both staged alibis that could be semi-corroborated? Again, I don't know if we have definitive evidence of exactly how they were corroborated. Supposedly the husband, Brandon, was in Mississippi fishing with no cell service, so it took a while for people to find him and then tell him what had happened. A few other people also chimed in stating that they are females and they walk the same way, especially when they have boots that are slightly larger than their size. This is called being duck-footed. And males or females can be duck-footed. An interesting post here, she was bludgeoned so much in the head and chest that the wake was closed casket. Whoever did this committed overkill. A professional hit would not have attempted to disfigure Missy the way that this killer did. Unless, of course, the killer was given specific directions on what to do. Again, we don't really, without knowing any of the details of if this was a hit, what kind of hit, etc. Some more posts here. I think the husband's whole family is in on it. That's maybe what is making it hard for police to arrest Randy. The son-in-law and the husband were both telling media that they thought it was a jealous woman. Anyone who had seen the footage can tell it's a man with a beer gut. Why would they do that unless they were trying to throw suspicion off of Randy? And Brandon's quote here, strongly believe that the murderer is a female and knew her on some form of personal basis, end quote. It's kind of weird putting yourself into the shoes of the husband. Why would you exclusively believe that, though? I don't know. Unless he has knowledge that if she was having an affair with a married guy, and that married guy's wife wanted her out of the picture, or was jealous, is that why he would make a statement like that? And it's possible it is an honest statement, based on some kind of knowledge of an affair? I would think the police would have investigated all of the spouses, but... Another post here, certainly not random. I think the marital problems, the husband's convenient trip away, and the demeanor of both his parents lends a lot to the theory that this was a very planned family murder. The other scenario that makes sense to me is some sort of infatuation turned stalking escalating to murder, not necessarily sexual. A woman could have strong feelings for her as a mentor or coach. There's been other instances of women killing those they'd love to emulate or be. It's a weird psychology behind it, but it happens. I hope it's solved soon. Here's another post by a user, I only have 2 cats. I know this is an older thread, but I attend Camp Gladiator classes in a different town, but not too terribly far from Midlothian. And the reason I can't believe it was random is that the classes are rarely inside. Camp Gladiator is an outdoor fitness program. You only move to your predetermined alternate indoor location if there is a greater than 50% chance of rain or if it's below freezing. Also, most of the time the workouts involve setting up cones, whiteboards with instructions written on them, and they always have to set up a table with a Camp Gladiator tablecloth and get their iPad to set up to allow students to check in. The perpetrator had to know that because it was raining heavily. Missy would be setting up indoors at that particular location. They knew she'd be there 30 to 60 minutes before the class started because it takes time to set up, which is why I believe they arrived so much earlier, because they wanted to make sure they were there first. I think they took advantage of knowing she would be indoors alone for a pretty big window of time because it was storming during her class time. No way this is random. The perp waited for a rainy day. I hope this gets solved soon. It's a shadow over the whole Camp Gladiator community, and she deserves justice. There's also that wrinkle in the theory that because sometimes she brought daughters with one or more of her daughters with her, so... Here's a very interesting post on Randy here. From what I've seen and read about Missy's father-in-law, he seems to put on a front or bravado. Example, laughing and joking with reporters, not showing any emotion of her murder. The impression I got with the whole bloody shirt incident is that he was treating it somewhat like a game. He knew all eyes were on him and his son, and it seemed like he thought it was humorous. Sort of like, look, I have this bloody shirt, but instead of giving it to the police and explaining, I'll take it to the dry cleaners and wait for them to call the police. He knew it would cause even more finger pointing, but he knew it would come back to his dog's blood anyway. Maybe just fun and games for him. Saying all that, his alibi does check out. Couple more interesting posts here. I have a random weird thought, not a theory, but a thought. What if Brandon and the father-in-law are not guilty of the crime? Yes, the father-in-law has a similar way of walking and standing, but is it just me, or doesn't it seem like the killer is acting? To me, it appears as if they are trying to match the father-in-law's gait. Look closer. When the father-in-law moves, his feet are duck feet, but his feet are far apart. Look at the perp, their feet are ducked too, but their heels are closer together. It's not the exact same gait or stance as father-in-law, it is different. The way they are moving and swinging out their leg and their arms, the way they walk, it's as if the perp is trying to walk like the father-in-law, or walk like they think a man would walk. I think it's a woman. Okay, side note, why do I feel this? Well, I was involved in theater, and when I was much younger, oftentimes they would cast females as males. I was cast as a man, and I did an awful job. It was very obvious that I was trying to be a man. I indicated with every movement that I was a man, but it truly showed. And looking at this video, it seems to me the person is indicating, look at me walk, I'm a man. As this is buried near the bottom, I'll throw out a totally weird idea. Has anyone checked the mother-in-law? Is she in the picture? Is she simply copying her husband's movements because she thinks all men walk that way? What if the mother-in-law killed Missy because she was pissed or sad that Missy treated her like expletive, cheating and whatnot? What if she killed her knowing that her son and husband had alibis? Maybe the reason father-in-law is acting oddly and laughing is because he knows for a fact that the person in the video is not him, but someone very close to him. Far-fetched, and as no one from law enforcement is going to see this, I can simply spitball here. Either way, it's terrible, and no matter what Missy did privately, it's a horrid crime, and she didn't deserve it. Okay. Other posts here, definitely cannot rule a woman out. On this we agree. My wife's response when I pointed out the manner in which the perp swung the hammer was simply, they swing the hammer like a girl. Huh. Interesting. Well, also, is it suspicious that her husband and the father-in-law are both out of town that day? They just happen to both be out of state. I mean, is that curious by itself? I mean, I guess you'd have to see how often they go out of state. If they go out of state every other week, I guess that's not suspicious. If they almost never go out of state, that could be a little coincidental. Another interesting post right here. What's interesting to me about this case is that whoever the perpetrator was, they presumably owned all this SWAT gear ahead of time. Whether it's actual cop riot gear or just a fancy dress, whoever it was would arouse too much suspicion obtaining such an outfit just before this well-publicized murder. So does that make him a cop, a son of a cop, a fantasist? The possibilities are endless. So here's another write-up from 4 years ago, also on unresolved mysteries, some astute observations here that we can dissect. So they go over the basic points of the case. At 5:06 a.m., one of Missy's students frantically called 911 after discovering that she had been brutally attacked. Described as unresponsive and having puncture wounds to her head and chest, the beautiful fitness coach had been bludgeoned to death. Authorities soon released references to ongoing financial and marital struggle within the Bevers' household. Search warrants revealed police allegations of flirtatious and familiar messages sent between Missy and an unnamed individual. Public opinion focused harshly upon Missy's husband and his family. However, after almost a year of investigation, no arrests have been made. Police have emphasized that Missy's family is not a focus of the investigation, and that they are now examining her murder as an untargeted type of hit. Just a few observations that stick out to me based on some of the theories I've been reading about this case. I don't believe this was a teen on a vandalism mission. There are way too many targets of opportunity for a vandal that the person in the video passed up. There's a glass table next to the door the subject half-heartedly attempts to pry open. That's ripe for the smashing. There's a few metal garbage cans and other objects on the floor that could be smashed with the hammer. There's an accordion wall divider that would be pretty easy to destroy with a claw hammer or pry bar. The subject also passes up what appears to be an exterior door entryway that has quite a bit of windows. A vandal is looking to destroy things for the thrill or fun of it. They aren't going to pass up every conceivable item in the place that could be vandalized. I like the level of detail this poster put in possible vandalizing. I mean, are they an experienced vandal? I mean, these are good points, though. Good points that many people might not consider. I mean, the level of detail here in this write-up, if this guy really is a vandal looking to cause a ton of damage, it does seem they passed up quite a bit of opportunity here. Continuing on, I also don't believe this was an attempted burglary. The subject passes up quite a few doors without even checking to see if they're unlocked. He also barely enters most of the rooms that he looks into, which means he probably isn't looking for stuff to steal. The subject also isn't moving with any sense of purpose, something that even a rookie burglar isn't going to do. The half-hearted attempt at prying open that one door certainly doesn't help the case for this being a burglar either. For someone who brought along a disguise capable of masking their identity for a decent security cam system and a hammer and what appears to be a small pry bar, indicated some level of planning and thought. They're not exhibiting any of the actions you'd typically see associated with a burglar. That only leaves one option in my mind: a targeted killing. I've been searching for the Facebook post that supposedly announced the change of venue for that morning's class, in search of what specific details it contained, but haven't had any luck, seeing if there was anything the killer may have been searching for when he looked into the few rooms in the video. The theory that I'm homing in on at this point, based on the family and presumably her close associates being cleared of any involvement in the crime, is the possibility that she may have had a stalker or someone who made passes at her that were rejected. Looking at some of the events she attended or taught at based on her Facebook posts showed she had contact with a lot of members, random members of the public. She was a slightly older but attractive and physically fit woman. The subject in the video appears to have some sort of physical ailment, causing the weird limp gait, and appears to be short and overweight. All things that could cause someone to search out a physical fitness trainer in the hopes of bettering themselves. It's entirely within the realm of possibility that she may have taught someone in one of her classes that was potentially unhinged or suffered from mental illnesses that latched onto her. This person may have come onto her or become overbearing to the point that she was forced to reject them. And this could have happened so subtly that it wasn't something she would have picked up on as physically threatening or worthy of mention to any family or friends. Yeah, I mean, you would think the police have exhaustively looked into every single person who was part of her boot camps that would match that description. Also, I'm still kind of stumped as to whatever happened with the two vehicles. Because if the vehicle was a rental or borrowed, I mean, weren't all, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a fairly common vehicle, so I guess it would be difficult, particularly if it wasn't local. If someone borrowed a friend or family member's vehicle from way out of town, I mean, how would they not know about the case and the time frame in question unless they had that vehicle borrowed for a couple of weeks and then that specific day didn't stick out? I mean, it's kind of hard to figure that out. Continuing on here, on top of that, it appears the subject brought the object he appears to be carrying with him, the hammer and possible pry bar, yet he doesn't really seem to be using either of them for what they'd be used for in the first two theories, vandalism and burglary. Seeing as how, at least in my mind, we can rule out those first two theories, it would seem to reason that those objects most probably were brought to kill Missy Bevers and to make her death as painful as possible. The brutality and suffering of death by hammer does seem to fall in line with the scorned stalker theory, it would seem. Yeah, I mean, if a burglar got caught in the act, unless he's completely psychotic, see, that's the thing. If this person is so mentally unhinged that they're not even really vandalizing or burglarizing, maybe they just wanted to do damage to a church. I mean, if this is a random thing, somebody stumbles across them, if they're that mentally unhinged, they might do damage to a witness that a non-mentally unhinged person wouldn't do. Just trying to cover the bases here, but I'm not saying that's anywhere near more likely than a targeting killing. Edit to add, the one thing I can't seem to make sense of is the disguise. It was a very specific and unusual disguise, and could be relatively easily identifiable if it was an outfit someone had owned for any period of time. There are plenty of other ways, in my mind, to completely disguise yourself to security cameras and casual observers that are a lot less readily identifiable, if concealment of your identity was your sole concern. The only thing that seems to make sense is that the police theme was chosen for a specific purpose, possibly to confuse Missy or other potential witnesses. Even if that was the case, I think it would stand to reason to most logically thinking people that the getup doesn't really closely approximate any modern law enforcement officer you'd see walking around in the wee hours of the morning by himself. I don't see any way that a lone woman standing in what she's probably assuming it is an empty building isn't going to be startled by some dude dressed all in black with a covered face and helmet, whether the jacket he's wearing is emblazoned with police or not. With that said, if we're dealing with a killer who is suffering from some sort of mental illness or deficiency, the oddity of the disguise could start to make more sense. Wow, here's an astute response here by Scratch Hamster. Perhaps the police disguise was chosen in case the killer encountered anyone other than Bevers. The staging of a burglary and the costume might have been part of a contingency plan to escape a confrontation with anyone else who might have been there. Assuming the attack was planned and the target was Bevers, the killer may have calculated the possibility that someone else could show up early, and this offender would want to be able to deal with it. A uniform could give them a chance to impersonate an officer responding to an emergency either before or after the murder, and then make an escape. I doubt this person cared if Bevers believed the tactical gear was real or not. The goal was to kill her anyway. Interesting. Yeah, we do have to keep in mind contingency plans. And yeah, it gets muddled because if this is somebody, an unhinged lunatic who can think rationally in certain ways but not other ways, in which case they could be thinking contingency. They could possibly be thinking staging a burglary or some kind of vandalism, but it wouldn't necessarily be done in a particular exact fashion. Again, without knowing the nature of their mentality, it's really impossible to discern this. The other thing that doesn't make a lot of sense, though, is if this suspect got there earlier, why would the suspect be breaking anything at all? Because if Missy got into the church and she looked like it had been broken into, her first instinct might be to leave immediately and call the police, not to investigate. So wouldn't that decrease the likelihood that she would stick around? I mean, Unless that was part of the staging and then the suspect cried for help from the corner where there's no camera. And then that would lead credibility to something going wrong if a couple things got smashed up. So that Missy thought someone was in trouble. I mean, is that a possibility? Another post here regarding the contingency plan and looking like a police officer. This theory doesn't seem to make much sense either. That costume wasn't in any way believable enough for pretty much any well-reasoned adult to think it was a real cop. The killer didn't appear to be wearing any duty gear or carrying any firearms. He was carrying a hammer and appeared to have the pry bar either slid into his belt or was wearing something that allowed him to clip it to his waist. What would have been his plan if he'd been spotted before or after the murder? If the plan was to run away, the whole make potential witnesses think I'm a cop wouldn't work, as it would be readily apparent a cop wouldn't run away. And running away is just as easy if you're wearing a less unique disguise. If his plan was to try to talk to or reason his way out of the situation with a potential witness, this also falls on its face because no real cop is going to be dressed like that with no gear. Unless he wanted to paint suspicion on the cops, so if he's running away at a distance, people would say, oh, there was a guy in SWAT gear with police running away from the scene. So if he's trying to frame a cop, that makes more sense, particularly if he wasn't intending to have any kind of up-close interaction with anybody. All right, so we briefly touched upon the other POI. Basically, there's two main POIs. The father-in-law, Randy, and this other guy, Bobby Wayne Henry. Security guard, former cop, former military, happens to have the same type of limp. The problem is he's supposedly too tall. And supposedly there might have been an alibi. So obviously on video, you can do certain things to make yourself look taller, platform shoes, whatever, or, whatever, helmets. But to make yourself look shorter, that's a little bit more problematic. So let's look at this post here. Also Unresolved Mysteries, new SUV for POI cited in the Missy Bevers case. Also, this was 4 years ago. So this is a podcast by Gumshoe Stories. They mentioned this, as well as search warrants, court documents. So Bobby Wayne Henry, former cop, former military, at least 2 women have accused him with rape allegations. He was charged for possession of child pornography as well. According to the podcast, he is full of tall tales, shot a friend in the knee in a hunting accident, requiring the friend to have his leg shortened 4 inches and ending the friend's military career. He made harassing phone calls to alleged rape victims. He is listed in the probable cause on the search warrant. He has a small, dark SUV. The search warrant states that he worked and attended church with Missy and her family. Although investigation has revealed this is questionable, even though on the search warrant. Bobby Wayne Henry has a similar gait to the person on the surveillance video. He worked security for Missy's memorial service. Yeah, I mean, that would be really coincidental. But I don't know. It's kind of weird. According to the Gumshoe Stories podcast, episode 1, and documents for probable cause for the search warrant, a top forensic podiatrist that law enforcement brought in could clear everyone in Missy's life except Bobby Wayne Henry. He was the only suspect or person of interest that was not eliminated via gate. So they eliminated, or maybe they never tried to eliminate Randy, but according to this, basically everybody was eliminated? I don't know. According to his mugshot info, he's 6'1". And supposedly the height range is 5'2" to 5'8", given by law enforcement. So, I mean, 6'1", I mean, that's a bit off of 5'7", 5'8". And then if he's 6'1" plus the helmet, I mean, I don't know. The height has been revised several times by law enforcement. Missy Bevers' husband said he was told the suspect was a 6-foot-tall male initially. Which is weird, because then they switch to not sure if male or female and a bigger range. So what do we make of this guy's gait? I don't know, it might be a little bit more similar than than Randy's, but yeah, it's weird. So this guy was also a security guard for the church after the incident. Huh. Other people also commenting he does not appear to be 6'1" in the video in this parking lot, and how much does he hunch over, which would make him look a lot shorter than 6'1", even if he was. An interesting post here. He's been a POI. Some have said he may have been cleared, but I am sure he did it. As I have said, I followed the case since the day it happened, spent straight up nights reading and reviewing it all. I have been in contact with a few people from Midlothian. They were the first ones to tell me of Henry and the feeling that he did it. The cops already had him circled in the case, but didn't really release a lot of info to the public, obviously. There's numerous things they have not released, mostly of the actual attack. They also told me about Henry's SUV when everyone else was focused on the car that was circling the parking lot of a nearby store. Then I found this video when I was Googling and going through every article I could find, and after I seen Mr. Henry's mugshot, I realized that it was him. And there is definitely a reason they released it to the public like this. They want someone to have an aha moment and recall something that might have seemed odd or the like from the night and morning of Missy's murder. Another post here. I thought it was odd they focused so much on that silver car. It was probably someone who was lost and stopped to look at their GPS or made a phone call or something. It's just an unfortunate event that happened nearby. I find it very weird that her husband and father-in-law just happened to be both conveniently out of town the night before she was killed. And both managed to make it home right around or on the day she was killed. So them being innocent, even if they didn't directly kill her, is still suspicious. So apparently, some people are saying there's at least 3 women who he sexually assaulted. And he allegedly sexually assaulted at least one in police uniform brandishing a gun. Huh. Other posters are saying here not only was he a cop, but he was actually a SWAT team member. Huh. Some astute posters here are saying that his 6'1" height was before whatever injury he had, the lanky leg. So his current posture, and because of his leg, he would be a bit shorter than 6'1". I mean, I don't know how much shorter, though, but especially with that helmet on. And if there was some kind of distortion in the security video, I mean, it is, and from being mounted up high, I mean, how accurate is the height? Because originally they had a pretty big range. Was it 5'2" to 5'8" or something like that? And then they're kind of sticking with 5'8"-ish. I don't know. I mean, you would think they would have accounted for any possible distortion in the angle of the cameras, but I don't know. Here's another interesting post. It's not just the lanky leg. The affidavit for probable cause to the Midlothian Police Department, secured to get a search warrant on Bobby Wayne Henry, lists several reasons why he was suspected. He had a hat with a light on it like was in the video, had the SWAT-style clothing, had a dark SUV that, like the one seen leaving the church that morning, which only recently came out thanks to the FOIA. He had allegedly accosted women while in uniform and brandishing a gun. The court documents have a gun listed as found at the scene. Granted, it could have been a gun Missy armed herself with and not the perps, or it could be a plant. Although, supposedly she left her gun in the truck, so it would not have been her gun. Bobby Wayne Henry's alibi is not solid. Claims he was home that night. Then somehow worked security for her funeral. Her father-in-law and several other men were surveilled by law enforcement, and the videos were looked over by a forensic pathologist podiatrist, and the only man with a janky leg he could not rule out as being the perp is Bobby Wayne Henry. They only have a partial DNA that is allegedly a mixed sample. It is not known where it was retrieved from, or if it is even the perp's. I was hoping they had a better DNA case because without a confession it would be hard to convict anyone solely on that church surveillance video. I hope there are some ballistic evidence or fibers. Otherwise, I don't have a lot of faith this case will ever be closed. So I found a couple more interesting posts here. Here's one pointing to Randy. So supposedly this is someone local. They posted this on social media. Randy, Missy's father-in-law, was my husband's boss from August 2013 to November 2015. And we and everyone who works with my husband think he is the one in the video. He walks 100% the same and is the same height and weight. From talking to everyone else who knows him, the majority say he is 100% capable of doing this, and probably did. He was always threatening his employees and had just been forced to resign due to embezzlement. The company didn't have 100% proof, so they basically said, resign and forfeit your retirement, and we won't open a full investigation. So I'm thinking Missy knew and had proof of what he was doing, and told him she was going to tell. He left his job so fast. His wife was his secretary and lived in a mobile home on the job site. He left all their paperwork and files, etc. They had left hundreds of employees' paperwork with their social security numbers, DOB, addresses, etc. So my husband grabbed them and we burned them. This is the person making the statement. They also left their bank statements, which I saved, just in case they ever did want to open the embezzlement case. The statements are pretty incriminating, so I can only imagine what Missy knew. I'm sure Randy told his son, and he told his wife, and it blew up from there. I could be 100% wrong, but with the information law enforcement is saying, and the information I know and have, I'd say Randy was definitely more than capable, and more likely did it. See, that's curious. If this is all true, but that does point to him being dumb, though. Because why would he just leave all that paperwork? I mean, how long does it take to just... I mean, obviously it might take a while to put everything through a shredder, but just to dump all the paperwork in some cardboard boxes and just get out of there and, do whatever, burn them or whatever, or just, hide them in a basement. But why leave them on site? That's kind of weird. Is this the guy who would have this kind of intelligence to pull off this crime? I mean, I don't know. I mean, sometimes dummies get lucky, but I mean, can you really count on that? All right, so the final point we're going to look at is, of course, the police conspiracy. So some alleged that the quality of the security footage was intentionally reduced by law enforcement, and that particular security system has much higher video quality, but they didn't release it because you can make out the features, at least around the eyes. And some online sleuths have pasted in Randy's face into what we have of the security footage to see if it matches. Obviously, it's impossible to really tell. And of course, if his alibi is 100% solid that he was in California, then it couldn't have been him, of course. I mean, I would like to know how they determined the exact alibi, but I'm assuming there's witnesses, but is there actual CCTV footage or airport security footage that would place him in California at the time this was going down? Actually, there's one more post I will get to before we get to the police conspiracy. So on Unsolved Mysteries subreddit 3 years ago, there's a thread here on this case, and this poster, LV Little J, has this to say. What is known? Miss Terry Missy Bevers, a 45-year-old fitness instructor, was found murdered in the early hours, April 16, 2016. Her body was found at the Creekside Church of Christ in Midlothian, Texas, where she had arrived 4 a.m. to set up for an early boot camp fitness class. Surveillance cameras around the church had caught the unknown assailant armed with a hammer walking through the halls of the church wearing police-issued riot gear. The assailant also walked with a limp, favoring their right leg and walking with their feet pointed outwards. Police estimate that the distance from the floor to the top of the person's headgear is approximately 5'8", plus or minus an inch and a half. So even if we go, let's say 5'10", that's to the top of the headgear, not to the top of the person's actual head, which could be 1 to 2 inches shorter than the helmet. Yeah, it's a tough one. The assailant can be seen wandering down the halls of the church, attempting to break into several doors and shattering windows, making the motive a suspected robbery or vandalism. Bevers' husband has stated that his wife did not know her killer. So he's made a lot of conflicting statements according to this. What is not common knowledge? Bevers was suspected to have been having an affair with several members of the Midlothian Police Department, as well as one of her fellow trainers at the church camp she worked with. The reason for the unusual walk is suspected to be due to the assailant wearing shoes that were too big. Bevers' body has been found bludgeoned, as well as her eyes carved out and breasts mutilated. More will be updated as interviews are still in process. So these are allegations made by LV_JE on Unsolved Mysteries subreddit. I don't know how much of this is corroborated. But if she is having an affair with several members of the Midlothian Police Department, I mean, this almost reminds me of the Zodiac killer case. If you haven't checked out the Zodiac series, check that out. Mindshock has the most in-depth and comprehensive coverage of the Zodiac case. If victims knew their killer, again, some of the victims allegedly, possibly having an affair with police members, police officers. Actually, one more thing before we get to the police conspiracy. Here's an interesting article from ExpressDigest.com. Husband says he is done searching for his wife's killer. Now, would this make Brandon more or less suspicious here? But let's look at this article here on ExpressDigest.com. The husband of a murdered Texas fitness instructor said he is done with the hunt for her killer. Terry Missy Bevers, 45, was found dead with multiple puncture wounds to her head and chest at Creekside Church of Christ in Midlothian, where she had been setting up an exercise class around 5 a.m. April 2016. Authorities later released CCTV footage of a suspect dressed in a helmet, gloves, and a vest with police written on it, walking through a church and carrying tools consistent with the injuries she suffered. For months, her husband, Brandon, 43, cooperated with authorities in the search for a killer and even tried to search himself. But in an email to the Crime Stories podcast, he says for the sake of his children, he is ending the search so he can memorialize his wife properly. The children are not terribly fond of apprehending this person. They don't want to revisit those emotions. They have told me this, he wrote in part. Now, okay, I can't read this article. It's so mind-shocking. How many cases do the children or husband said that they're not fond of apprehending the person responsible for the death of a family member or loved ones? Now, this is allegedly him. If he's the one who wrote this email, he's speaking for the children, so maybe the children don't really believe this, and this is his story for whatever reason. We have to keep that in mind as well. But continuing on here, they see here the daily anxiety I have in finding this person, and I think they are tired of the mentality this puts on our day-to-day life. This behavior has not left Missy the real legacy she deserves, particularly in my children's eyes. From this point forward, the only thing I will discuss is who Missy was, her contributions to my life, the children, the family, and numerous other people that she loved. Back in May 2016, Brandon told People he was convinced that his wife's killer was no stranger, and also revealed he was spending his days trying to figure out how to make their young daughters feel safe again. I think it was a woman, he told the magazine. I still think whoever this person was knew my wife and had a motive. Brandon said he also believed the suspect went to great lengths to stage the scene to look like a robbery gone wrong. He added, there's no reason why an individual would break into a church dressed in that type of clothing and stage a robbery, or what would appear to be a robbery, going through the building, breaking glass, and opening doors. If that person really was there to commit a robbery, why did they kill my wife and leave her wedding ring on her finger? At one point, authorities said they wanted to speak to the owner of a Nissan Altima that was seen in the area before Bevers was killed. Surveillance footage captured the silver or light-colored car pulling into a parking lot less than a mile from the crime scene. No arrests have been made in the case, and authorities have not even confirmed whether the suspect is a man or a woman. The last remaining lead involves a car pulling into an SWFA sporting goods parking lot at approximately 2 a.m., Assistant Chief Johnson said at a press conference Friday, CBS reported. They're seen pulling into the parking lot and leaving just a few minutes later. Police said the car was a 2010 to 2012 Nissan Altima with an oval sticker on its bumper, but added that the driver is not necessarily a suspect. Authorities earlier obtained warrants for cell phone information related to several members of the Bevers' family. Johnson confirmed none of the victim's family, friends, or co-workers are considered suspects. Now, again, police also do say that in certain cases where they want them to let their guard down, but who knows? They did provide more information on the suspect captured on CCTV, describing the individual as between 5'2" and 5'7", and appearing to have lighter skin. Investigators have still not determined if the person was a man or a woman. Meanwhile, Brandon's mother, Marcia Essery Tucker, took to Facebook to urge the killer to turn themselves in. So apparently his mother does want justice to be served. Are you getting a bit nervous, shaking in your boots that look too big? You should be. It's just a matter of time now, the victim's mother-in-law wrote. Things would be a lot easier on you if you just go ahead and turn yourself in. I'm sure the officials will take that into account. Go ahead and clear your conscience. You will feel better. No sense in having your family witness you being picked up by the police and leaving that lasting vision on their minds forever. We are all waiting. It's one way or another. Her message came less than a month after search warrants revealed that just days before her murder, Bevers had received a creepy and strange message from an unknown man on LinkedIn. Here's another Facebook post from Marcia Tucker. My second letter to the murderer of Missy Bevers, May 7th, 2016. It has been 2 weeks since I wrote the first letter to you, almost 3 weeks since you murdered Missy. I would guarantee your life has been more miserable than ours. Our life has been filled with peace that you wouldn't understand. Something only a God-fearing, saved by Jesus person truly understands. We have been blessed by so many wonderful people willing to share our grief by praying with us, preparing meals for her family, and just blessing us with all of their actions in so many ways. How about you? Are you feeling all the love from your family and friends, or do they suspect you, thinking something is not right with you? How did it make you feel when so many people all over this nation said such glowing things about Missy? You probably sat back and thought, how little do they really know her? I assume you were jumping up and down when the news about her life was not as perfect as a lot of people thought. See, these posts are kind of weird, though. Why would you bring attention to that, though? Huh. That's kind of weird for the people suspecting her. I mean, is she Randy? So she has a different last name than Randy Bevers. So, and this is the mother-in-law? It says this is Brandon's mother. So is Brandon's mother... So, okay. So are they separated? Or they just have different last names for a reason? I don't know. This is all very, very weird. I don't know. This is weird. If, for the people that believe that she's responsible and she's just writing these messages to cast attention away from herself, I mean, I don't know. That's kind of weird. This article also says authorities claimed someone tried to clean up the crime scene. Huh. So this is Brandon Bevers' full email. My family's story. Well, we all have good days and bad. The children are not terribly fond of apprehending this person. They don't want to revisit those emotions. They have told me this. They see here the daily anxiety I have in finding this person and think they are tired of the mentality that this puts on our day-to-day life. They want normalcy and happiness. I want justice. But I too fear the reality of bringing this case person to trial and the emotional uncertainty that may go with it. So you have to ask yourself, do you bang your head on the wall every day with this? Do you allow the unsolved aspect of this to infiltrate your thoughts, put yourself in a foul state of mind every day when you have 3 kids to focus on? Starting 2018, I'm done allowing this uncertainty to control me this way. I will leave the headbanging and brain rot to the investigators. Trust me when I say they are qualified. I have spent most of this time feeling my responsibility to Missy was to find this person. That's just not realistic. My duty to Missy is to memorialize her life, and that is exactly what I will do for her and the children's sake. She deserves this for all that she has contributed to our lives. I'm done talking about this investigation, theories, etc. I wish all of the whack job social media stuff would go to hell. Why do these people not realize they have left a door open for my children to peer into one day? How damaging could this be? No factual basis for all of the speculation whatsoever. This behavior has not left Missy the real legacy she deserves, particularly in my children's eyes. From this point forward, the only thing I will discuss is who Missy was, her contributions to my life, the children, this family, and numerous other people that she loved. You bet I loved her. I know without a doubt she loved me. Don't you see the real value in this? There is no value in discussing events that led up to her murder or to speculate if she was targeted and why. I mean, I don't know. That's a weird thing to say. I mean, when a person is killed, there's, of course, the timeline has to be established. This sounds really strange. Does this sound like somebody who doesn't want suspicion cast upon them or their family members because they know something? Or does this really come off as genuine and he just wants to be done with it? And if that's the case, why specifically mention that there's no value in discussing events that led up to the murder? What if the perp enjoys listening to all of this rhetoric? What this person needs to hear is who they took from us. The mother, the wife, the daughter, sister, friend, etc. These topics are more relevant and purposeful than anything else as far as logic is concerned. The activity surrounding this investigation is best left to the investigators. They have way more concrete information that isn't up for discussion or for sale. Yes, you can share this. It's all I have to say right now. Thank you, Brandon Bevers. Okay, so yeah, I really don't know what to make of that. Like, it's weird because you do have true crime cases where innocent parties have said something somewhat similar, though not exactly, and then you have other cases where the family member was responsible and they were trying to divert attention away. So that doesn't really tell us anything by itself. The most suspicious part of that is saying that it's kind of there's no value in focusing on whether or not it was a targeted hit or not. I mean, how would you find her killer unless you do that? And if the police were that capable, they would have already closed this case. Here's actually an interesting article from the Washington Post. A Washington Post examination of 8,000 homicide arrests across 25 major U.S. cities since 2007 found that in half of the cases, an arrest was made in 10 days or fewer. The analysis underscores what police leaders and homicide experts have said about the passage of time working against detectives. But it also dispels the notion of a 48-hour rule that most cases, if solved, are wrapped up in 2 days. Only 30% of the cases led to an arrest within that time frame, the analysis found. 2/3 of arrests were made within 1 month. For cases that remained unsolved after about a year, 5% ultimately led to an arrest. Wow. Wow. So basically, 10 days to a month is when cases are normally solved, and then there's a gigantic drop-off of 5% or less after a year. So here's the thing. This is the last thing I'm going to say about Brandon Bevers' letter here. And I can't speculate because I don't know these people. And everybody's different. But I believe all victims of any violent crime deserve justice. And everybody has kind of their line in the sand on what's appropriate or not to get that justice. But who is anybody to really say? I mean, and even the discomfort of children in younger years in just being exposed to all this, which is obviously terrible. But is that better than to not have the person caught and not have justice be served? I mean, I can't answer that question. This is all subjective. I just find it strange for anybody to definitively state that justice doesn't need to be served just to protect discomfort. I mean, yeah, the discomfort is probably absolutely horrible for anybody that has to deal with this. But in most cases, people just naturally want justice. And I think it's normal for people to want truth and justice. So again, I don't really know what to make of that email. So the final point we're going over is this change.org petition, which is very, very curious. So this was posted by True Discovery Investigation. This petition calls for a federal investigation of Texas's Ellis County Sheriff's Office and the Midlothian Police Department. An innocent woman was brutally murdered by an assumed police SWAT officer more than 2 years ago, and the investigating agency is withholding the truth and preventing justice, presumably to protect their own. The beginning of a national crisis is taking place in Ellis County, Texas, and requires federal intervention. Missy Bevers, 45, wife and mother of 3 daughters, was found murdered inside a Texas church shortly before 5 a.m. on April 18, 2016. Missy was a fitness instructor and was there to set up for a class, but was allegedly attacked and brutally murdered by perpetrators, with an S, dressed in police SWAT tactical gear. Missy was found unresponsive by an unidentified student and later declared dead by the now retired Ellis County Justice of the Peace. The circumstances surrounding Missy's murder and the subsequent conduct of the MPD, combined with the current state of this investigation, constitutes a federal case in pursuit of capital criminal charges. Criminal observations. CCTV surveillance from inside the church was grossly altered to conceal the identity of the perpetrators, yet MPD released it, soliciting help from the public. CCTV surveillance from the gun store across the street shows a 2012 silver Nissan Altima circling the parking lot shortly before the murder, and that video was also altered to conceal the identity of the vehicle owner and or its passengers, yet MPD also solicited help from the public. The owner of that car has never been identified, and MPD refuses to acknowledge its connection despite an anonymous source identifying the police SWAT vest and mallet tools inside the car well over a year ago. Several vested citizens also have enhanced the videos and in doing so recognize one or more passengers as well. There are at least 2 perpetrators inside the church, evident by their size, frame, and shoes, yet MPD insists there is only one. MPD led the public to believe that Missy was bludgeoned to death with a hammer because she had multiple puncture wounds to her head and chest, consistent with tools that one of the perpetrators was seen carrying throughout the church. Yet FBI crime data shows that Missy was shot in the head. The MPD refuses to release any investigation reports, autopsy, 911 transcripts, preventing investigative effort from outside sources. The MPD has turned away help from outside agencies, Ellis County, FBI, and the Texas Rangers. Missy was known to be friends and associates with many law enforcement officials, one of which is now the lead investigator for her murder. Missy was allegedly seen out at a restaurant with the sergeant over MPD's Criminal Investigation Division 3 weeks before she was killed. The weekend that Missy was murdered, a former ECSO lieutenant who abruptly retired 3 weeks earlier was arrested for stealing guns from the Ellis County CID evidence room. Many of the firearms were tied to other serious crimes with strong evidence that to suggest one of them was the murder weapon used in a 2013 MS-13 gang murder. Missy purchased a gun 6 months before she was murdered, which is when the gun theft activity reportedly began. Missy always left her gun in a specific place inside her truck. Her gun was not mentioned in any of the search warrants, including the one filed for her truck. Missy's murder happened within days after the gang leader rejected a 15-year plea deal and a few days before new evidence presented that was powerful enough to dismiss the murder charge against him. This gang leader was extradited back to El Salvador on an ICE hold to face charges for another murder, and the former officer is now serving 18 months in federal prison. The murder charges were also dismissed for 5 of the 6 gang members, with one scheduled to be released in 2020 with 7 years served. It is important to note that the Ellis County's chief investigator, an Irving Police Gang Unit officer, and a civilian witness, all 3 tied to this murder investigation, all died within a few months before the trial, with cause of death investigation outcomes that merit further investigation. Unaware that they were stolen, the gun store across the street from the church was a recipient of 3 of these stolen guns. Regardless if the gun theft activity is tied to Missy's murder, it speaks to the character and integrity of the law enforcement agencies and officials within Ellis County, and the Midlothian Police Department's silence speaks to an issue of the abuse of power, obstruction of justice, and lack of accountability. We hold our public officials to the highest of standards, and when there is a shared concern of the size and scale among citizens over the course of many years, federal intervention is the only course of action to impose change. A good majority of the residents of Midlothian are living in fear, and consequently they remain silent. There are many who have tried to come forward but were either retaliated against or threatened into silence. Missy's mother and brothers have also remained silent without any advocating on her behalf, and her 16-year-old daughter recently went as far as raising $15,000 to further fund the investigation. This is not okay. Supposedly, the police also turned down that $15,000, and they would not accept it as just reward for information or whatever. So that's kind of weird. This investigation should focus on the evident corruption and coercion, conflict of interest, abuse of power, and obstruction of justice, with shared responsibility within the city of Midlothian, Ellis County, and state of Texas representatives. Given the well-documented pattern of abuse over the course of many years, any criminal proceedings brought before any court other than the federal courts that are responsible for hearing capital cases would not only be dangerous, but it is unjust and unconstitutional. No one is above the law. Except maybe Steven Seagal. We stand in uniform as we present this petition for change. We, the people, assert that a federal investigation into these agencies is necessary to demonstrate America's commitment to restoring a sense of fairness within all justice systems across America, and to show the world that the state of Texas nor our country will stand for abuse of power nor corruption in our society. And good luck. There's a lot of interesting information in this change.org petition, but how much of it is coincidental? So I'm going to leave it at that. The Mindshock listeners can chime in with their thoughts on this, because this is all very, very mind-shocking. And one of the most baffling cases in recent history. It's almost like the Delphi murders case, where you have video evidence and yet no conviction. No one even arrested for the specific charge. It's kind of weird. Does that mean there's some kind of conspiracy afoot with altered or planted footage? Is that why the cases haven't been solved? I don't know. It depends on who the perpetrator is. It's kind of, a lot of the coincidence theorists, they say, oh, it's not some conspiracy, but how would you know until after the case is solved? Unless you know who did it, you can't say whether it's a conspiracy or not, because the case is unsolved. But the longer it goes unsolved, the higher the chances are it is a conspiracy. Because look at all these other cases. Even cases that aren't definitively solved, like the Terra Calico case. If you haven't checked that out on Mindshock. It seems like there's a lot of law enforcement involvement in that case, which may have prevented it from being solved. But plenty more to go over in the Missy Bevers case as well. There's more information we have to go over in an attempt to solve this case. It's just really unacceptable that it has not been solved with the amount of information available. We can only hope that law enforcement have held it back because they are securing a conviction. But after how many years? How many years have to go by before we say maybe they don't know what they're doing? Again, we went over those Washington Post statistics, which seem to line up with all known stats. The longer a murder goes unsolved, the less likely it is to be solved. Now, new DNA evidence and new generation DNA technology is solving a few of the older cold cases, but it's not like the uptick is huge, unfortunately. Hopefully it will be, but at the moment, there's just a couple cases here and there that are defying the odds, which are good, but the majority of the cold cases and unsolved murders are still unsolved. Hope you guys enjoyed another edition of Mindshock True Crime. Found it interesting and informative. If you want to support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, or you can just go to youtube.com/Mindshock. Like and share. Keep up awareness in this case as well as other cold cases, missing persons cases, and wrongful convictions. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topological analysis, co-podcast request. You could also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind. Leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.